Oda just gave us even more Portgas D. Ace lore after his death, and it relates to Shanks and Buggy's connection with Mr. Firefist himself. Yeah, that's right, Sabo and Luffy were not his only brothers, but Shanks the Yonko and Buggy the Yonko, the Emperors of the Sea, known for being babies taken by the Roger Pirates, as Gabon called them their son. Also, can I mention how Garp went to Gabon personally to tell him Roger has a son? Because you know Roger couldn't do it because he was locked up. Now there is people who say maybe Roger told Rayleigh that he was going to tell Garp to protect his son because Garp is a Marine and he has inside connections, but I like it better if Gabon actually talked to Garp, because we know on God Valley, Gabon was the one carrying Garp and Rayleigh was the one carrying Roger after the Rocks fight. So let's see them have a conversation after Roger died. And would also heighten even Garp saying to leave Rayleigh alone, we can't go against two legends. Yes, he was talking about Whitebeard going to war with Marines, and he knows that at any moment Rayleigh would crash out for Roger's son if he knew Ace was Roger's son. This is of course when they reported seeing Rayleigh on Sabo Odi. If anything, Garp probably told him about Ace maybe as well on the same island and seen him, but not actually telling him Ace's name and his lineage or the island he stayed on. But many people are obviously calling the Roger Pirates, and Rayleigh to be more specific, a fraud for watching the war and only crying during Whitebeard's death, or even the fact that Shanks, Gabon, and the rest of the Roger Pirates didn't do anything. But I will say this, it was pretty well known that Ace was Whitebeard's son, so they probably thought Whitebeard would get the job done, which he technically did until Akainu rage baited Ace. But not to get sidetracked, let's do a deep dive on this interesting connection highlighted in the recent installment of One Piece. Like the video and make sure you guys don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention how Shanks thought Ace was going to be the Pirate King, giving strength to the theory of him looking for Roger's son to give the Nika fruit to. But don't forget what Scarpagabon said about it not being hereditary, especially when you look at Teach, the son of Rocks. Rocks had a complete different personality than Teach, and of course they had similar goals, but it looks like Teach is going about a different way because of his uprising and nurturing compared to Rocks. Teach had a really bad childhood, I will be honest here. And then there's Shanks. Shanks is the son of Figureland Garling, one of the most evil men to date, but he also was adopted by Roger and took on his personality. Then there's Dragon, the son of Garp, but chose to be a revolutionary, not a Marine. He actually left the Marine and despised Garp for that. And then of course we also have Luffy, the son of Dragon and the grandson of Garp, Marines and revolutionaries, and he said, I'm gonna be a pirate. So yeah, Ace, it's not surprising that he didn't follow into Roger's footsteps of trying to be Pirate King, or ended up being Pirate King. And Scarpagabon also said that he had the most expectation. Remember when Squardo accused Whitebeard of trying to make Ace the new Pirate King? And then you look at moments where Ace is actually the opposite of a character, where he actually says that he wants to make Whitebeard the Pirate King to Luffy during Alabasta. This manipulation was all thanks to Akainu. Ironic. But yeah, Scarpagabon is pretty much saying those that have the over-the-top expectations don't really pan out. Just look at the NBA. So many superstar sons end up being trash. Now, I think one of the greatest things that happened to One Piece are the novels, and Ace's novel is one of my favorites because we don't really get much of Ace's journey pre-time skip. So to see a little perspective of Ace's journey is pretty cool. I know people like to say it's not canon. People like to say it's canon, but I want to talk about it because we don't got a lot of information to go off of when it comes to Ace and his connection to the Roger Pirates. But we do know that Ace, when he met one of his strongest crew members, his vice captain, Mas Deuce, he did tell him that he was Roger's son and his hereditary and his bloodline. And I thought that was pretty cool because we all know that Ace and Roger, it doesn't matter what you say, is super connected. Even though that Roger never seen Ace grow up, Roger had a huge influence on Ace. Remember when Ace was a kid and asking about Goldie Roger, and everyone was like, yo, that guy's a demon, and they were talking so much trash and they hated him. Roger started the Great Pirate Era, so we know why a lot of people hated him, but he did that for a reason, because he knows Joy Boy is waiting 20 years into the future for that change. Upon reaching the New Worlds, Ace's first order of business is to find Shanks and meet with him. Deuce tries to talk him out of it, fearing Shanks' power when he gets mad, but Ace tells his crew about Shanks' polite actions in Fusa Village 7 years ago. Although Shanks is the most difficult to find out of all the 4 emperors, Ace eventually finds the red-haired pirates partying, what a surprise, in a cave on a winter island. Ace introduces himself, and Shanks and his crew quickly become friendly when he reveals his association with Luffy and Makino. I love this little intercept in the novel because Ace was looking for Shanks during the novel, just like we seen during the mini flashback right before the war started, and how they got along through Luffy. Of course, I'm not surprised. That's Ace's brother, and that's of course Shanks who we gave the Straw Hat to, so I'm not surprised there. But also mentioning of Makino, we know that Ace had a really good bond with Makino, and Makino looks to be Shanks' baby mama. So That's a video for a whole nother day, but I found that pretty interesting as a nugget in this novel. While talking, Ace tells Shanks that he has no intentions of becoming Pirate King. Don't forget, Shanks thought that Roger's son would end up being Pirate King, but rather wants to make his reputation spread throughout the whole world. To do this, he will take on and defeat the world's most powerful organizations, particularly the four emperors. And among the emperors, Whitebeard is his biggest target. Ace then asks Shanks about the scar on his face, and Shanks replied that he's unsure what the man who gave it to him is doing right now, not revealing his name. Ironic, because we know that Ace and Teach would end up on the same crew and then end up, of course, fighting. Ace then leaves, and Shanks and Ben Beckman note that his haki was strong enough to melt away the snow while he was here. Now, I found this super interesting because we know that snow being melted, he's the Mary no Mi's user, he's a fire user, not surprising here, but they mentioned haki instead of his Del Fruit, which makes me think, how strong was Ace's haki back then? I also found it super interesting how Beckman is skeptical about Ace's chances of fulfilling his dream as a pirate, saying that joining the Revolutionary Army would have made more sense. He wonders how Ace's bounty is as high as it is, and Shanks appears to realize Ace's heritage, as he recalls that Ace was born in Batarilla and knew Goldie Roger's real name. We learned during the novel that Shanks and Ben Beckman, these haki specialists, were in the awe of Ace's haki melting the snow. There. I remember when Ace came to Drunk Kingdom and snow didn't fall, showing how much aura Roger's son had. Also, the fact that Ace never wanted to become Pirate King in school because it reminded me of Whitebeard. Now, he didn't care about becoming Pirate King, and they weren't even cool yet. Like, Whitebeard wasn't even claiming Ace as his son yet. If anything, Ace wanted to kill his first Yonko, Whitebeard, the most. We also get Ben Beckman saying Ace should have joined the Revolutionary Army, which is Luffy's father's organization. But even more importantly, where the new Mary no Mi user is his second in command. Yes, his brother Sabo, which I found awesome. The fact that Luffy is following into Roger's footsteps trying to become Pirate King, and Ace should have followed into Dragon's footsteps trying to become Revolutionary Army, both their biological fathers. I love this tidbit in the novel. It's all ended with Shanks realizing that Ace's heritage is the reason for his high bounty, and knowing, of course, Roger's true name is a good sign that Ace is Roger's son, and Gabon told him about it during the Loki flashback, which I believe is the same son that Shanks wanted the Nika fruit to go to. Yes, Shanks wanted Ace to be Joy Boy. And this really makes a lot of pre-time skip events make a lot of sense. I know a lot of people are like, Oda is retconning when it comes to Ace, Sabo, and a lot of things that he's been doing towards the final saga. But don't forget, Oda works differently than us, He already had the final saga already mapped out in his mind, but he had to fill in the in-between parts. So I love how the in-between parts are connected to the final saga. And some people will be like, oh, he just added it right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if Oda already had this in his mind. He just didn't have the details straight out yet. I don't think Oda is very super details orientated, honestly, but that's the reason why his world building is his best feature, because world building is not really details. World building is more so the bigger picture. That's what they call it, world building, for goodness sake. But yeah, Shanks sending out Rockstar, and Rockstar going to see Whitebeard and getting the letter ripped up. I wonder what Shanks said in that letter. I think maybe Oda had Whitebeard rip up that letter because Shanks said some interesting things to get Whitebeard's attention. Probably something to do with Ace being Roger's son and Teach being Rox's son. Two of Whitebeard's strongest allies, of course, being Rox's white right-hand man and Roger's one of his biggest rivals. The fact that Roger told him about the Will of D, the One Piece treasure, and all of the Void Century and everything that he needs to know. Yeah. You remember what he had to teach? You're not the one that Roger's waiting for. Yeah, and he knew Roger's son. Honestly, there's so many things that Oda can add even to Whitebeard's story, finding out that Ace is Roger's son. I know Whitebeard's mind will go crazy thinking like, whoa, this is insane, especially after my meeting with Roger after he found the One Piece treasure and was a Pirate King. Another genius moment by Oda is having Buggy and Ace become best friends pre-time skip. Who would have thought that they would be partying and eating food and enjoying their time, and the Buggy's crew wanted to kill Ace, but Buggy's like, yo, he's a Whitebeard commander. And Whitebeard and Roger had strong beef, and the crew's like, how do you know all this stuff? And Buggy's like, yo, I used to be the New York Grand Line back in the days. No, he used to be on the Roger Pirates back then. He was actually the baby to Roger. Yes, Roger was like a father to Roger was like a father to Buggy. So they both kind of were, these were brothers. Buggy and Ace are brothers, and Buggy became an emperor after this. So I love how Roger's sons all made it big in the One Piece world. But yeah, we see them together making friendship and everything. Oda, you are a genius. And now people are making theories of Buggy being Rox's son. Like, Buggy's lore just gets better and better as we get to the end of One Piece. And then we get Shanks actually pulling up the Whitebeard to Yonko's meeting. This was such a big deal, and many people don't talk about it. Like, we rarely see Yonkos meet in this high scale of events. We've seen it with Kaido and Shanks right before the war started, but Shanks and Kaido were meeting because Shanks was stopping Kaido from doing some insane things like going to Marineford and trying to kill Whitebeard. But many people believe he wasn't trying to kill Whitebeard. Many people believe he was actually going to team up with Whitebeard the same way they teamed up on God Valley against Imu. Who knows? But then, of course, Shanks stopped that. For whatever reason, Shanks wanted to stop that, and we don't know his aspiration. We know the Yonkos are fighting over territory all the time, and Kaido killed Oden, and Kaido looked at Whitebeard as soft. So there is kind of some beef there between Whitebeard and Kaido, and Oden is Whitebeard's brother, and we saw what Whitebeard's relations with Teach. Like, Teach was pretty much raised by Whitebeard, but Whitebeard did not claim him as a son. He pretty much was disgusted by Teach for killing Thatch. Whitebeard doesn't like you killing one of his family members, so Whitebeard and Kaido would have definitely threw hands, in my opinion. People forget about these little details. But yeah, back to this. Shanks comes to, of course, Whitebeard's ship, all hockeyed out, and is just dropping fodder. And it's pretty cool entrance and everything. Josu's there, Marco's there. It's a cool moment. You know that they all know that Shanks was a part of the Roger Pirates. They literally fought in a war that lasted 3 days. So they have a nice connection with Shanks, Josu, Marco, Vista, all these guys who know Shanks. And Shanks pulls up on the crew and pulls up on Whitebeard, and Whitebeard's like, leave us alone, yo. I'm gonna talk to this apprentice of my former rival, Roger. And when they talk, Shanks warns Whitebeard about Blackbeard and about Ace fighting. Now, I believe the reason why he warned about Blackbeard and Ace fighting is because Shanks knew that Ace was Roger's son and Blackbeard was Rox's son, and I think he knows about some lore here, and Whitebeard obviously knows about some lore here as well. So there's a lot of hidden clues in here as well. Whitebeard mentioning Buggy was super cool in this moment as well, but my favorite part is when Whitebeard said, "You're 100 years too early to be warning me of anything, yo." So Whitebeard had his ego a little bit when it comes to Shanks, and they had their Kankasaki clash, and Shanks is like, "Come on, don't do this. You know it's true." And Shanks is right, yo. Whitebeard did have a bad feeling when Ace was going to see Blackbeard. Whitebeard even said, "Yo, don't go." So I love these little hidden clues in the pre-time skip, and Oda is just tying it all together with these recent bombs, like Shanks saying that Ace is his little brother, and of course we're finding out Shanks and Buggy are the sons of the Roger Pirates. I just love moments like this. It makes me make videos like this. And then of course right after this we see Blackbeard and Ace fight, and this fight is one of the most important fights in the One Piece story. The reason why I say that is because they literally said it in the narrated box. This fight was a trigger event to Marineford. But now that's not the only reason why it's super important. It's actually lore-wise important. This is Roger's son versus Rox's son, two Willoughby members, and everyone knows that Roger falls into the Joy Boy lineage in a sense, and Rox falls into the Davy Jones lineage, and then you actually have their bloodline sons. Of course, Ace is not in the Joy Boy lineage, where Luffy was more so in the Joy Boy lineage. But many people believe that Luffy and Ace, because we know Blackbeard was searching for Luffy, and if Luffy was involved in this fight, this would have been Garp, Roger, and Rock's son all fighting. Yes, it would have been a God Valley repeat, but no Dami reverse was needed because Blackbeard, over his nurturing as a kid, was definitely pure evil. No Dami reversing needed here, and he stole Thatcher's Yami Yami no Mi. He's a different fighter than Rox. Rox would never use a Dolphin guy, so I would have loved to see this fight again analyzed after the end of One Piece. I think there's gonna be more stuff that drops, guys. Garb's already kidnapped by Blackbeard. There's so many lore things that can drop in the future of One Piece, and I love that Ace is super connected to it. And then of course we have Ace going to Wano, and this is where he learned the Wano signature hat that he made for Oz Jr. But the reason why I'm talking about this is not because of that. It's because of his interaction with Yamato, and it was such a good interaction that he went back to Whitebeard and said, "Yo, let's go and attack Kaido." Well, he pretty much wanted to attack Kaido himself, and Whitebeard said, "You want to attack Kaido, the same man that defeated Kozuki Oden, a man that strong." Kozuki Oden was in Kaido's top 5. He scarred Kaido. We've seen him take a divine departure and get back right up. We seen him conquer Zaki clash with Whitebeard. Like, these are two legends in their prime, and Oden was a beast, and he got stronger through his journey with the Whitebeard Pirates and Roger Pirates, and still lost to Kaido, even though things happened that interrupted the fight. That's crazy because Ace is not even close to Kozuki Oden in power level, and Whitebeard's telling him that. But I also find it super cool because we know that Oden and Ace have a connection through Roger. We know that Oden was amazed by Roger, and Ace is Roger's son. So I love these interactions here. Oden, for all purposes, is a Roger pirate and the uncle to Ace, in my opinion. That's the same way Rayleigh and Kaban are. And then, of course, we have Ace and Yamato interaction. We know Yamato read Oden's journal, and that was a big deal because Yamato realized Luffy had the exact same dream as Goldie Roger, and realized Luffy and Roger's connection is bigger than it seems. It's like patterns, the same way that Gonfall is like, yo, he kind of reminds me of Roger, and they have the same initial D. I honestly believe this moment is key because Ace is around when Yamato's learning of Luffy's dream, and Yamato's crying. Ace like, don't laugh. He's like, Yamato's not laughing. She's crying of how impactful this is connected to Oda's journal and of course the future of One Piece and the final saga. I also found it super ironic how Ace wanted to go drink with Roger and thought he was a great guy. It's super ironic because we know Ace hated his father, Roger, and pretty much didn't want to live because of his lineage. And Yamato found out Ace died later on and would realize that Ace was, of course, one of the first that Oden was talking about in the journal of these new pirates coming into the new world 20 years later. And it was a lot of hype here, in my opinion, but also the fact that Yamato realized that Ace was Roger's son. And Yamato definitely looked at it like, wow, Ace is Roger's son. So that's insane because of what kind of man Roger is that Oden said in the journal. So I found it super cool how Oda is every arc sprinkling some Ace lore, and I want more. Give me more. I wonder what Akainu and Roger's connection will be made through, because we know that Akainu killed Ace, and the way he killed Ace is interesting too. He rage baited him. Yes, he pissed him off saying that Whitebeard was a loser of the past era and Roger is the true pirate king goat, even though Akainu admits he shouldn't be saying this as a Marine. Now remember guys, we know Whitebeard stood in front of the throne for like the last 2 decades after Roger's death. And many people realized that Whitebeard was the world's strongest man and could have easily got the Pirate King title after Roger told him. But Akainu is rage baiting Ace, don't forget that. But I also think the fact that Akainu is showing respect to Roger, being the summit of all pirates, makes me think, what does Akainu know about Roger and what kind of interaction had they had? Maybe they had an interaction in the past. We know Akainu would have been a Marine during Roger's era. We know the Roger era is kind of hyped up after the God Valley incident with guys like Roger, Whitebeard, Big Mom, Kaido, Shiki, and Ochoku. These were the 6 that dominated and fought over territory after God Valley, and I want to see if Oda highlights it maybe in a Roger flashback. I don't know, he kind of gave the Oden, Roger, Whitebeard semi-flashback, but I want to see more from this era, and I hope Oda gives it to us. Then of course we have Sabo eating Ace's dove through the Mare no Mi, and a lot of people are making theories of Sabo awakening some blue flames to avenge his beef with not Teach, but his beef with Akainu, because Akainu magma was hotter than the Mare no Mi. But if Sabo, of course, awakens, maybe the blue flames is hotter than the magma fruit. We know that technically fire does burn hotter than magma in real life. Don't quote me on that, fact check that, but that's what I think I read. So honestly, Sabo getting his revenge for Ace with Akainu is a storyline, a plot line that's been there for a while. And I think recently seeing Ace get more lore every single arc, it's gonna happen. Ace is gonna be a big part of the final war. I remember Shanks' and Ace's funeral, where Shanks talks about how Roger never ran, and there were so many times that he wanted Roger to cry, and it just made me think of how Shanks is connecting that to Ace not running against Akainu, coming back and fighting him, even though Whitebeard told him to run away and go, and you still have promise, you still have potential. But no, he doesn't listen, and he goes, runs, and he fights, and he doesn't run away from Akainu. It's the same trait that Roger had, and honestly, what he did is sacrificing himself for Luffy, something that Roger would have done. That's the type of man he is, and that's something they connected. Even though they don't have a lot of similar traits, they do have a lot of like vibes traits and like personality when it comes to the emotional and how they think, but they definitely have a lot of differences when it comes to their dreams. Roger is Luffy when it comes to dreams, and everybody knows that. So I believe Shanks vs Blackbeard will be a memento to Ace, his little brother. But don't forget, Ace asked about his scar during the novel, and Shanks kind of alluded to it being Teach, but he didn't want to say his name. And we know both Roger and Garling are the father to Shanks, technically blood father and adoptive father, same way Whitebeard and Roger are the father to Ace. So we all know that Roger and Garling both fought rocks at God Valley, so it'll be a huge connection also through that. But it will ultimately be Luffy who avenges Shanks and Ace. As we saw during the Blackbeard speech during Jaya, a man's dream never dies, and Luffy thinks of Ace and Shanks. This is obviously a connection that Oda wants us to remember for the final saga. Yes, both of Roger's son, and how he will inherit Roger's will, the Straw Hat, and Joy Boy's will as well, get the One Piece treasure like Roger did, Oda, you are a freaking genius for the things I see in the beginning of One Piece and how you still connected towards the final saga. That's what a story's all about. And Ace, to me, say what you want. Oh, Oda's adding shit. This was never planned. I think that what Oda's doing with Ace has been wonderful, and I think it's gonna get better even too. The more we learn about Ace and what other people knew about him, and what we see at the end when things are results and things are outcome, and people look back on Ace, like Sabo, like Luffy, like many characters that are gonna know Ace, Garp. I can keep going on and on and on.